Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Valdez, and you have made it to the live signing of Tucker Carlson's new book, The Long Slide, 30 Years in American Journalism. And if you're watching then, you already know Tucker needs no introduction, and we have so many questions that have come in from you guys. So love to just dive right in. Tucker, how are you today?
I couldn't be better. I've never done anything like this in my life, and I'm very psyched.
I'm glad to be your first, and I love the scene behind you, love the flag, love woodworking. I used to be a woodworker. Where are we today?
We're actually in our barn, to be totally honest with you. And this is where our studio is, where we do the show every night. The one upside of COVID is you don't have to be in, a place that's too ugly to live, like a city, and you can be wherever you want. So we live in a little town, and we're really grateful to be here.
Well, so many people are watching, and for those of you who are watching, for the next hour, Tucker's going to be signing books and answering as many of your questions as possible. And for those who have just tuned in and have not yet purchased a book, you actually still have time to order an autographed copy and even submit a question to Tucker, and I'll get it on this iPad. And we've got a lot already, so hopefully we can get it over live to him. But just click over to premiercollectibles.com/The Long Slide to order your copy. So Tucker, why did you write this book, and why now?
I wrote this book because this will happen to you, by the way, Danny. Yeah. You'll wake up and you realize, wow, I've gotten kind of old. And I was approaching my 30th anniversary in journalism, which is this week.
Wow, and, congratulations.
I know, it's weird. It's weird. I think it's Friday, actually. And I couldn't believe that it's all I've ever done. And I was talking to our editor over at Simon & Schuster, who said you should do a collection of everything that you've done over the past 30 years that you think is, still of interest, that held up. And interestingly, here's the weird thing. So this is the second book I've written for Simon & Schuster. As I was putting together the collection in January, right after the election, Simon & Schuster was also publishing a senator from Missouri called Josh Hawley. And Josh Hawley cast a vote that was controversial, but not unprecedented. I mean, many members of the Senate on the other side had cast it before, after previous elections. But Simon & Schuster canceled his book. And his book had nothing to do with the vote. It was on a completely different topic. It was about the terrifying power of big tech, and it is terrifying. So they canceled his book, and they issued a press release attacking him. So I felt I had nothing to do with the story, but I felt implicated in it because I was under contract from the same company. I was taking their money. And so I felt, boy, I have a moral obligation to find out what happened here, because I'm a beneficiary of the company's profits. So I called the head of the company, John Karp, and I said, did you just cancel this guy's book because you came under political pressure? And he said, yes, we did. And I said, well, that's cowardly, and that's censorship. And isn't that everything that publishers stand against? And anyway, this led to a long conversation. I decided that if I was going to do this book with Simon & Schuster, and I was under contract to do it, that I would report out what they did as kind of a snapshot. If you have publishers in the United States canceling people because they don't like who you vote for, the votes that you cast, then we don't really have a free society. And so it's very important to chronicle this. So anyway, I interviewed Karp, and I interviewed the head of the imprint of Simon & Schuster at length, and I wrote all about it. And to their credit, they're publishing the book anyway. I mean, it's not flattering at all. I think they come off as craven and dangerous, but they're still publishing it. So good for them.
Yeah, that really jumped out to me. Is I saw that in the book, and then I went, now wait a minute, who's publishing this?
Right.
And that was really interesting to me, that they have gone through with it, and there seems to be a good relationship. Or how does that work?
I don't know. A lot of American media is based on something called passive aggression. I don't know if you have heard of that. It's the least honorable way to communicate. So they haven't. I'd be much more comfortable if they said, by the way, we hate you and we're not doing this. But I think they really felt trapped, because they knew that if they canceled my book about how they'd canceled someone else's book, that it wouldn't be worth the bad PR trouble. And, I had no burning hatred of Simon & Schuster. I love a couple of editors there, very nice people, some really smart people there, but the leadership of it is entirely political. They're just basically agents of the Democratic Party. They gave Hunter Biden millions of dollars, apparently, I read, to write a book that sold like no copies. No one wanted to read his book. And of course, that's a payoff to the Biden administration, in my opinion. Now, they, of course, would deny that. But they want to be in and on good terms with the new administration. So,
yeah.
But it's not really book publishing at that point. I mean, I'm not going to call it bribery because bribery is a crime, but I'll leave it to viewers to decide what they think of that. But I'm pretty disgusted by it.
Well, and I'm not close to being finished with my copy yet, but something that has already leapt off the pages for me is your authentic passion for journalism as a young man. And that's something that I personally related to. And in fact, you wrote, in order to produce a decent magazine piece, you had to go places, meet people, see unusual things. It was an adventure every time.
Yes.
How do you, 30 years later, do you still have the enthusiasm you had as a young man making $14K a year, as you wrote in the book?
I do. And that's one of the reasons I was so impassioned in the intro to the book to defend, the basic premise of journalism and publishing is freedom of expression. I don't agree with everything my wife says, but I don't try and stop her from saying it. Right. So there's that. But the practice of journalism, particularly magazine journalism, I loved it. And from my perspective now, as an aging American who's in a studio most of the time, the best part about print journalism is you have to listen. So I'm more in the transmit business. I like sit down in a chair and just talk a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to become a buffoon and an egomaniac, and many who have sat in this chair have managed to become both of those things.
Sure.
And so it's important to retain your ability to listen to other people, like shut up once in a while and hear what other people are saying.
Yeah.
And journalism really forces you to do that. I mean, that's what it is. You're quiet. You're not running around throwing your opinions in people's faces, which I do now for a living. And I love my job. I'm not criticizing or complaining about my job, but I'm not sure it's great for your soul to be the one who's talking all the time. If you're sitting at dinner with a bunch of people and there's one guy at the end who said too many drinks, and he's like, and another thing, and this time I was playing golf in Scotland, and you know what? You're just like, will you please be quiet? You're just in a falling bore. You can kind of become that.
Totally.
So as I was reading this book, I was like, I was such a better person that I would roll into a place, even a place of high drama, like a war zone, and I would just be quiet and I would listen to people and I would ask them simple questions and record their answers and then think about what those answers meant.
Yeah.
You have to think a lot about other people when you're doing long form journalism because it's about other people. It's not about you. And last thing I'll say, because now I can't stop talking because I've been infected with the Fidel Castro bug. I'm going to give like a 3-hour speech now. But,
hey, this is your live signing. You go, brother.
No, it's just funny. It's like I detest the autobiographical nature of virtually everything in English right now. It's all about me. It's my identity and my lived experience. Who cares? Be quiet. You know how many billions of people have lived before you? You know how many billions will come after you? Like, look up from yourself for a second. There's a whole world out there. Why don't you listen to other people for a minute? And I would say my greatest fear, even more profound than like cancer, is becoming the person who can't hear others. Wow. And you can feel it. You'll find out, Danny, when you get to middle age, it's like all of a sudden, it's like all about you. It's bad.
Yeah. Wow. And of everything you wrote in the of everything you wrote here, what do you hope is the biggest takeaway people get from reading this book? Is there an overarching theme that you're like, man, I really hope they get this?
Well, there are a couple of them. One is what a freer society looks like. I mean, one of the things I noticed, it was such a weird experience. It was like opening a time capsule or, finding a pile of T-shirts from high school. They still have the smell, of 1986 on them. I really was struck by the number of Democrats, even famous Democrats, liberals, that I spent time with and really loved as people, or good people, and I was never a liberal, ever, not for one day of my life. I've never been a Democrat. I always disliked the Democratic Party. But I was able, and it was effortless, actually, to be friends with people like James Carville. I mean, I always really enjoyed Al Sharpton. I mean, nothing Sharpton says I agree with. But he was an interesting guy, and he was smart, he was funny, and I enjoyed my time. I'm not ashamed to admit that I spent a lot of time. And in fact, when I wrote my first book 20 years ago, he threw the book party.
Wow.
And that wasn't considered like crazy. I was just as I am now. I was a conservative talk show host on cable news. And Al Sharpton threw my book party. I like Al Sharpton. We don't agree on anything, but like I like him.
Sure.
That world is gone. Like that world is absolutely gone. So
Wow.
that's sad. And I like that world. I like.
Why is that? Like, what is the danger everybody feels from hearing opinions that you don't agree with? Why is that so dangerous now?
You know, that's an obsession of mine. And I wish I knew the answer to your question. I think there are a lot of different factors. I think the two biggest ones are the growth of the internet and the decline in religion. So, say what you want about organized religion, and obviously the origin stories of all the great religions are not scientifically provable.
Sure.
People rise from the dead and God makes things with his hands. It's like, what? So people are always like, oh, that's so crazy. They're actually somewhat less crazy than some of the things we now believe. Those stories.
That's a fantastic point.
But the truth is, yeah, you think the resurrection's crazy? How about the idea that you can change your sex by wishing it so? That's like Wizard of Oz crap. Like, what? But people really believe it. But here's the point I'm making is that when you take worship, like organized formal worship connected to, say thousands of years of religious tradition out of the life of a country, people replace it with something else because they need it. And we're all born with this instinct to worship something larger than ourselves. It's not something people made up. It's something that's innate. And when they replace that with politics, you get like the Soviet Union. Politics is not a religion.
Wow.
And when it becomes a religion, people get hurt because there's no forgiveness in politics. The beauty of Christianity, for all its faults, I am a Christian, I should say, but lots of things you can criticize about Christianity, whatever, but at its heart is the knowledge that you're every bit as flawed as everyone else, maybe even a little more so, and that your job, your forgiveness, is predicated on your forgiveness of other people. That's the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. They're linked, they're contingent. You don't get one without the other. So Christians have to forgive. Now, there are a lot of crappy Christians out there, as we know, who don't forgive, but the religion itself demands forgiveness.
Yeah.
Amazing Grace, one of our greatest hymns in probably all Protestant denominations, is about a slave owner who realizes, I can't believe I just did that. Like I was a slave owner. Like what's worse than that?
Right.
But I'm now forgiven, and politics has no room for that at all. Politics is about conquest and domination. It's total war. And so if that becomes the state religion, things get really harsh. You have a lot of sharp edges in your society. And the second obvious point I would make is that the internet, and particularly social media, particularly Twitter and Facebook, are designed to put us into silos among like-minded people and to divide them. And Twitter really is a stupid factory. I mean, you take a person who's kind of deep and wise and reflective and put him on Twitter for a week and he becomes like a hate spewing moron immediately. Why is that? It's in the nature of the app, because it reduces all thoughts to 100 and whatever freaking character. I mean, it's so dumb. I don't even remember how many characters it is, but the idea that you have this, 3-sentence space to express your views on the news of the day or your personal identity or whatever. It's like, it's insane. And it takes all the nuance away.
Yeah.
It takes all the kind of softening out of a sentence. So when you and I talk, if I think your shirt is ugly, I say, Danny, you're a good guy, and I love button-down shirts. There's a long tradition of them, and honestly, I think you're kind of a handsome man. I don't think that shirt quite displays your best qualities. And you can take that. Now, how many characters did that take me to express? Quite a few.
Sure.
If I was doing that on Twitter, I'd be like, hey, Danny, your shirt's ugly.
Yeah, because you don't have the characters.
So the means of communication defines the effect that communication has on other people. And Twitter specifically rewards viciousness, stupidity. And if most people are not on Twitter, most Americans don't do Twitter, but our entire ruling class does Twitter. Politicians, the media live on Twitter. That's their only news source. And they lead the country. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And they've become brutish and stupid and short-sighted and mean. So that has an effect.
And I love the contrast of the book business. One of the reasons I love being in the book business is that you have time. The authors know that this is going to perhaps live forever. So there's a lot more time and thought put into what they quote, post, if you will. And you, the reader, can take a moment between chapters, reflect, think about what it means to you, how it affects your life, rather than the frenetic caffeine social media style of digesting information and then thinking a certain way and running off to work. I mean, I love what you're saying. And it's such a case for long form, you know, whether that's long form discussion, long form books. I really appreciate what you're saying.
You make such an important point. I mean, look, the modern world is too complex to understand for Wikipedia and Twitter. It just is.
Yeah.
There's too much history. There are too many moving parts. It's just too complicated. I mean, this country alone, 340 million people, an entire continent, countless cultures and languages and geographic regions. Like, how do you understand something like that? Yeah. You can't do it unless you read books.
Yeah.
And so I'm really distressed that the reading of books has declined dramatically for a really simple reason. When you're on your iPhone, which is a control device issued by Apple to enslave the population. I've got one right here just to show you.
Yes.
When you're on that all day, it rearranges your brain. So it's very hard to read a book. It's hard to read anything on paper. And I'm a lifelong book reader, a book writer. Obviously, that's why I'm here. So I really believe in books. But I find myself, I get in bed at night. My wife has never spent her life on the iPhone. And so she reads a book a week, every week, 52 books a year, every year.
I love that.
Because her brain, she's done it all her life. Her brain has not been rearranged. I like sit there and I'm like, all right, I make myself do it because I think it's important. And the other point to make is like, if you're a book publisher, one of the last big ones like Simon & Schuster, you have a sacred obligation not to become partisan hacks and not to hire totally incompetent people, which they did, to run your company. This really matters. It really matters. Like, you have America's intellectual life in your hands. Don't, treat it like the treasure that it is, John Carter.
I love that, a responsibility. Well, so many questions have come in from people who have bought this fantastic looking book. And you ready to go and take some?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I would selfishly hog your time just so everyone knows this is a treat for me as well. So, but want to go to Francis from Colonial Beach, Virginia. With all the years in journalism, which story sticks with you the most, and how did it affect the way you do your reporting on current events?
Well, by far, a story that I did in the winter of 2003 in Iraq. I was a talk show host at the time. I've done this for so long, but I really never wanted to give up being a magazine writer. It doesn't pay anything, and I had a huge number of children, and I had no money. So and I love TV, but I went into TV, but I really felt an obligation to report a certain number of stories a year just to remain a normal person and remain engaged. The Iraq War breaks out in March of 2003. A friend of mine was killed first week.
Wow.
Covering it. He was a reporter, and he was killed right by the Baghdad airport. And I felt I got to go see where he was killed. I have to see this for myself. I had supported the war in Iraq on the show that I was on. It was called Crossfire on CNN. And it was a high-rated show at the time.
I remember Crossfire. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was the longest running, or one of the longest running shows in TV.
Wow.
Anyway, and I had argued on behalf of the war and on behalf of the Bush administration's explanation that Saddam had WMD and that we needed to pacify the region by taking him out, and et cetera. And I don't know. Anyway, I had to see it because I had argued for it, so I felt obligated to. And so I went, and I was just completely shocked. And it was a bitter experience for me, but it was also a beautiful, soul expanding experience in that it was another reminder of how wrong you can get it. Of how little we know. Yeah. The first thing I realized when I got to Iraq is, wait a second, I don't speak Arabic. So why am I commenting on Iraq? Like, how can you understand a country as complex, as any country, really, human civilization is complex, if you don't speak the language?
Right.
And then I thought, wait a second, Bill Kristol doesn't speak Arabic either. And neither do any of the people who are advocating for this war. So they don't actually know anything. And so I'm not alone in my ignorance. But what I realized when I was there, and I won't belabor it, was that I was completely wrong. I was completely wrong. And I felt, I didn't start the Iraq war. I didn't claim there were WMD when there weren't. But I definitely advocated for it. And I did it in a kind of feline way where rather than make the positive case for it, here's why we need to invade Iraq, what I would do is pick apart the arguments of my opponents, which is the easy way out. So if you're for something, just say it. Be a man about it. Here's why I'm for this. Here's what we're doing, and here's why. But instead of doing that, I was like, oh, your argument sucks, and you're, maybe you're not patriotic. I mean, it was just ugly, and I did that. And I got to see the fruits of it, and it was horrifying.
Wow.
And I won't bore you with it. The piece is in the book, but it was one of those stories where, I wrote it. It was for Esquire magazine. And I wrote it when I got home and on the plane home. And then over a period of about a year, I just could feel things changing inside of me. And I realized a couple of things. One, I'm never going to advocate for something I haven't deeply thought through, that I'm not certain of. If I don't know, I'm just going to say I don't know. There are tons of issues on which I don't have strong opinions. I don't know enough about it. Just say that. It's okay. You can say that. Yeah. Even if you're a talk show host, you don't have a hard and firm opinion on everything. What do you think of the law of the sea treaty? I don't know. Should we defend Taiwan if China invades? I can see both sides, actually. I don't like China, but is that good for us? I don't know.
Sure.
That's all right. Just say that. And never lie. And there are many ways to lie. I've never been a big liar, really. But, lying is not just saying something you know to be untrue, saying it's Tuesday when you know it's Wednesday. Lying is much more complicated than that. Lying is allowing untruths to go unchallenged when you know they're untrue. Lying is implying you believe something you don't fully believe. Lying is diverting attention away from the relevant question to less relevant questions. Yeah. Like Cindy Sheehan. Like, who cares about Cindy Sheehan? So Cindy Sheehan's son was killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. She became a huge anti-war protester. She was kind of an idiot, but her son got killed.
Sure.
So, and she didn't know anything. So she was like immediately swooped up by all these like true lunatic, like Maoist anti-war people, like communists, like bad people.
Sure.
So but her point was, we shouldn't be there. It doesn't help us. That's a totally fair point. But rather than engage it directly, I was like, oh, Cindy Sheehan's hanging around with Maoists. Okay, but that's true, and she shouldn't do that. And I hate Maoists, of course. But is what she's saying true or not? And I never addressed it.
Wow.
So there was a kind of dishonesty in that. And anyway, I felt such shame over my own behavior that I decided I'm never doing that crap again. I'm never doing that again. Life is too short. I don't care. I'm not going to knowingly lie if I can help it. I mean, I lie. So I guess if I'm forced to, I will lie. I do. I probably will again. I know I will, but I don't want to. And I really want to try not to do that. How, who's that fraud with the dreadlocks who got rich? Ibram Kendi, okay. Whatever the guy is, like, white people are bad, send me millions, that guy.
Okay.
His whole thing is anti-racism, whatever that is. I kind of, and I'm against racism, of course.
Sure.
I'm for anti-lying. Let's just see, and it's impossible. It's a platonic idea. Like, we're not going to get there. But go an entire day being as honest as you can. And it doesn't mean expressing all of your thoughts. I have tons of unexpressed thoughts, tons. I hope I always do. You hurt other people if you say everything you think. You shouldn't do that. But never misrepresent what you believe, ever. Try that. And it's really, I fail constantly, but I do try ever since that trip. And I just feel a great burden lifted.
Wow.
I mean it.
I appreciate you saying that. The internet does seem to be, and I feel this, making it, I don't know, terrifying to have a belief, express how you feel, think a certain thought, and I'm not saying I give into that all the time, but I certainly feel that pressure to just be totally neutral. I have no opinions. And that's, I'm not going to be long with these questions. I went on a motorcycle ride with some old guys. All these guys had gray hair. And we sat around afterwards, and I was so refreshed. I didn't agree with everything they were saying, but they didn't have a problem saying it. And no one felt buffeted by their words. Everyone was secure. It was beautiful. And now I'm going to ride every month with these guys now. They were like elders in my life that I needed. It was so
because they're relics of another country, the one that I grew up in that was a free country.
Mm-hmm.
And in any country, any culture, you're going to have taboos, and you should. I'm not against taboos. I don't think you should get in people's face with things that hurt their feelings for the sake of doing so. I think that's wrong. And I don't do that. I don't think you should burn a Quran just to make Muslims mad. Right. Obviously, I'm against that. Or you shouldn't burn a Bible to make Christians mad. But I think that you should be honest, and I don't think you should live in fear. That's the measure. Is it a free society? I don't know. How many people are afraid?
Wow.
Well, we live in a society where everyone is afraid. Everyone's
afraid. A great point. That is such a good point.
Yeah. And I'm not going to live like that. And I had to move away from the city where I spent my life. I had mixed feelings about it, but I also felt like if that's the price of being free, I'm going to, and I don't mean free in some theoretical sense.
Sure.
I mean free in a very practical day-to-day sense. Am I afraid that, I'm going to get yelled at or something? I just want to live among gentle, polite people who say what they really think in the expectation that the people hearing them will understand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not because
100%.
everyone has the same opinion, but because everyone is treating everyone else like a human being.
Yeah.
And not like, some alien invader or Nazi to be killed or something. I mean, whoa, I cannot be around that.
Right. I had a friend say 50 years ago, people were deciding if they were going to have kids together. And now my wife and I are wondering if the government's going to let us go to Chili's tonight.
Well, no, it's totally right.
So
and I also think kind of on some level, it is our fault. This is like another thing that's come to me with age, which is if you're in an intractable conflict with somebody.
Yeah.
I once had a very serious conflict with one of my closest friends that went on for years. And it was, over a serious thing. It wasn't a small thing, but it really wounded me and it really dragged me down. It was the thing that bothered me more than anything. And I finally realized one day, oh, it's my fault. Not because I was the only one who'd done anything wrong. He had done wrong things too, but I can't control him. I can only control me. So the second you realize that, it gets better. It's like, oh, I'll change my behavior. And then things got better. And I think that our government is like that. If, I was watching TV this morning and that tiny little guy who's in charge of the country, whose name I can't remember, Fauci, is up there and is like totally discredited. He helped fund the creation of the virus that's crushed our country. So like, of all people in this country, Anthony Fauci, go face your indictment. Like he has no moral authority whatsoever to go outside, and he's telling you that you can no longer have your constitutional freedom. So I'm like, well, that's very frustrating watching this guy who really should be under indictment telling me that my children have to wear a mask in school and the basic no evidence. Like, it's so frustrating. And then I realized, oh, this only works because we're going along with it. Like, why are we putting up with this?
Yeah.
You get what you put up with. If you let your children smoke weed at the breakfast table, I'm guessing they would. Not because they're bad people, but because they're children.
Yeah.
But they don't, because you'd be like, oh, no, sorry, my house, no weed at the breakfast table. Can't do that. Here are the rules. I'm here to enforce them. And your kids are like, oh, no weed at the breakfast table? Okay.
Right.
So you get what you put up with. And I'm not suggesting anything bad. I hate violence, just to be totally clear about that. I just mean, like, maybe there's a point, and maybe we've long passed that point, where we should stop obeying nonsensical orders that are designed to hurt rather than help us.
Good
and
word.
The mask thing is a very clear thing. There is just no, and if there, I've done all these shows night after night because I'm very literal. So it's like, oh, well, here's this study that shows this is counterproductive. Silence. Where are your studies that show it works? Silence. Like, nobody cares. They'll do what they can get away with doing. And we're implicated in that. So how about this? No, I'm an adult. I pay taxes all my life. I love this country. I doubt you love it more than I do. Don't get me the patriotism thing, please. And I have a right to make up my own mind, because that's the whole premise of America right there. Yeah. I'm a free citizen with agency. So if I'm obeying your order that we both know is senseless and designed to humiliate and degrade me and make me into a serf, whose fault is that? Probably mine, right?
Yeah. Wow. Well, Scott from Glendale, Arizona asked.
You got me going, Danny.
I love it. But I have to honor these book buyers. Do you truly believe there is a way to stop this, quote, long slide? And if so, how? Great question.
Yeah, I do. I don't think, I'm not a historian. I studied it in college, which is a huge waste of time. But I've read history ever since. I love history because I think it's so interesting. People are interested. And one thing I've concluded after just, a lot of reading history is that history is not inevitable. It's not baked in the cake. It's not, people can change it through action. Sometimes really dramatic action. Sometimes it takes a revolution. I'm very opposed to revolution generally. Most of the time, overwhelmingly, things change when ordinary people, in a polite, sensible way that's rooted in reason and decency and respect for others, say out loud the things that are true. Words are really powerful. And I'm not just saying this because I'm in the word business. I think it's subjectively true. The ancient Hebrews believed that words were holy, that they were an expression of God, that once a word emerged from your mouth or was written on a parchment, it had its own life. It lived independently of you. Wow. Words are that powerful, which is why they're trying to control your words. Of course. Like, why are they so intent on telling you what you can and cannot say? Because they recognize the power of words.
Right.
So, you know, we retain that power. We have tongues, and saying what is true in whatever way comes easiest to you, but one hopes in a non-confrontational, calm, rational manner. No, this is what we know to be true, and here's why. If millions of people did that, then we would have a free country again. Because what's the answer? You can't say that. No, actually, I can say that. And it's a God-given right. It's guaranteed me by the Bill of Rights and our Constitution, our primary founding document. And I'm going to exercise that right. And if you throw me in prison, that's fine. But there are a million more people. You know, we don't have enough prisons to jail everybody.
And you mean practically, like, more people need to stand up and write books, more people need to make their voice heard online, et cetera?
I mean, at every level. I mean, I mean it particularly for parents. And I was in this position. All my children, thank heaven, are out of high school, because it really is. I'm only now understanding just how poisonous it was for my kids, all of whom are fine, thank God. But, you know, find out what they're teaching your kids. And if you think that it's immoral or incorrect, say something. They're your children. They don't belong to the teachers union or to the headmaster of your private school or to, well, I can't even remember his name, Joe Biden. You know, doesn't own your kids. You know, they're your children, and you have dominion over them. And that's the natural order. No society questions that. It's nature. And so if you give up the right to make those key decisions about your kids are going to be hurt, because no one loves your kids as much as you do. So don't be afraid. I talk to parents all the time, both in my work and also in my private life. I just know a lot of parents, and they'll say, well, I cannot believe they're teaching this at my kids' school. They're telling my kids that they're bad because of the way they were born. And I think that's racist. And I was like, well, yeah, it's kind of the definition of racism. And it's also really bad to tell that to a 14-year-old. What does that do? If we were telling, you know, like if you were telling gay kids, like, you're evil because you're gay and you're going to die and you should be really ashamed, you'd probably see like a huge spike in suicides. Well, actually, we have seen a huge spike in suicides.
Absolutely.
It's not an accident.
Absolutely.
It's a reaction to attacks that they're getting in school. So why are we allowing that again? And just, you know, call the head of the union. Actually, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to pull my kid out. You're wrong. I'm going to, I don't know, post on Facebook about it and to get my neighbors to do the same. Why are we ashamed? It really is about changing your attitude. So you live in this country, you're born here, your parents are born here, you support the system. You know, you send your kids to the military, you send your taxes every April. All of a sudden, this group of lunatics who hates you and the country takes charge, and they're like, you should be ashamed. Really, of what? What did I do wrong? I'm sorry, I didn't. I mean, if you can name it, I'll apologize for it. I'll atone for it. But the sort of general, ooh, you're systemically evil? What? Oh, you are. Buzz off. Like, I'm not what? It doesn't even make sense. And yet their aggression is so overwhelming. I mean, they just show up and start yelling, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, if you yelled fire in a crowded theater, people would assume there was a fire just because you're yelling fire. So if somebody shows up, you know, George Floyd dies in Minneapolis, they're like, you're a bad person. I am? Yeah, here's the tape. You see how he was killed? Yeah. Well, you did that. I did. And the next thing you know, you change the country because you catch people off guard. They're gentle, sweet people. They're people of good faith. They tend to be kind of literal. You know, they believe words have meaning. They're logical. And if you get right in their face and start screaming at them, some huge percentage will like believe you.
Yeah.
And then you take over, not with popular support, not by democratic means, but as a kind of insurgent movement that takes over the country. That's exactly what they've done. And the way to stop it is not with arms. It's with unashamed truth-telling. Don't be ashamed. I have nothing to be ashamed of.
So good. Gaines from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida writes, do you still have your old bow ties? I would love for you to wear one on your show.
You know, it's funny you said that. I gave them up in 2006. I was at an immigration rally. I was working for another cable channel, and it was hot. I took my tie off, and I kind of liked it. So I wore them all my life through high school. I had to wear a tie in high school, and the bow tie was kind of it was designed to be a kind of provocative, you know, middle finger around your neck, as we used to say.
Wow.
So I stopped wearing them, and I don't know, it just kind of happened, you know, 15 years ago. But I had a lot of bow ties, all striped. I always like striped ties.
Okay.
Just more aggressive. And
I've got 7 in my drawer.
No way.
Yeah, because I just got invited to steeplechase here in Tennessee, and I invested in bow ties. They're beautiful. I love them.
They're great. They're hard to tie.
Well, no, these are pre-tied.
Okay.
I don't have bow ties. I have
smart.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it takes a minute. But anyway, so I had all these ties, but I couldn't throw them away. So they're actually on the second floor of my barn under the eaves somewhere.
Okay.
And they will not be located till long after my grave is no longer being visited. Someone will find them.
Gonna auction them off.
So these belts, people were thinner then.
That's right. Paige from Roanoke, Virginia. In all your years of journalism, what is your foresight for this country between the Harris-Biden administration and big tech and mass immigration?
Well, I mean, mass immigration is the biggest of those stories because it's the most profound attack on democracy. And democracy is the promise that every citizen has a role in running the government. It's called self-government. And we have a vote. We vote for people to represent us in Washington, but they're directly accountable to us. And so our political power rests on our numbers. All of us, every citizen, right? 340 million people. You divide political power 340 million ways, take out the children, et cetera. So if you bring a ton of people into the country, you dilute the political power of the people who already live there. You undo democracy. And that is the point of it. I mean, there's no humanitarian justification for it. It's a humanitarian disaster. If you live in Guatemala, and a lot of really nice people do, and you see the new US president saying, I'll give you free healthcare, free education, free housing, and citizenship if you get on a train at the Mexican border and, risk your life to get here.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you do that? I would do that in a second.
Absolutely.
I don't blame the migrants, that's for sure. I never have. I blame our leaders. And so then, they get on the train in Mexico and, more than half the women get raped and a bunch of people die of dehydration or get killed by coyotes, or there's a drug war in the middle of that country. So it's like, it creates a humanitarian problem. For our purposes in America, we have a massive unemployment rate. We also have a labor shortage. That's how screwed up our economy is right now. But you keep wages low when you have a loose labor market. I mean, this is Econ 101. If you sit through 20 minutes of any economics course at a community college, the first thing you learn is that supply and demand is the operative principle of economics. The more desired something is and the more rare it is, the more valuable it is. Diamonds. The more commonly available it is, the less desired, the cheaper it is. Sand. So that's true of labor markets. If there are more willing workers, employers can pay them less. If there are fewer, they pay them more. So in Iceland, which has very few people and tight immigration, people make a ton an hour. Wow. The guy, behind the cash register selling you snooze is making 3 times what our minimum wage workers make. That's a good thing for him, but it's bad for employers. So this is an attack on our economy, on our democracy, and on our social cohesion. This country is already very, very divided. So if you let millions of people in from foreign countries who don't speak the language, does it become more cohesive? No, you're pedaling towards some kind of disaster. And then when they arrive, if you tell them the most important thing about you is your ethnic category and stay loyal to that and not the country, you're creating tribalism. You're like, hey, Hutus, meet the Tutsis, good luck. Right. You're actually wrecking the country and in a way that can't be fixed. So and it's funny if I could just say one thing. In the last election, the most surprising result, I thought, well, it didn't actually surprise me, but it was certainly shocking to people in DC, is that people with Hispanic last names in the border counties of Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, voted overwhelmingly for Trump. Now, there's a whole longer conversation, but the idea was, I can't believe Hispanics voted for Trump. And the truth is, I guess they're Hispanics, but they're actually what we call Americans. They're just like Americans, and they live there and they love their country. And all of a sudden you open the borders and it wrecks their lives. And why would they be for that? Yeah. By the way, a lot of them don't even speak Spanish, but it doesn't even matter if they do. They're Americans. They understand countries have borders, and they didn't like it. So when the Democratic Party saw that, they're like, oh, wait a second. We're losing Hispanics in huge numbers to Republicans over the border issue. We got to bring in more people, and not just from Latin America. It's nothing to do with where they're from. It's just we just need new people who are loyal to us. If you say this out loud, they go crazy. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. But at the same time, they themselves say that out loud constantly. Dick Durbin did it on the floor of the Senate 2 weeks ago. This is what we're doing. Yeah, got it. Okay, I don't like it, so I'm going to say so. You can call me names. I'm not intimidated by you. I don't respect you, and I don't care what you think of me. I'm going to tell the truth, period.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go to Garrison from Trustville, Alabama. What has been the most rewarding part of your 30 years in journalism, and what has been the worst part? I'm a big fan.
Oh, you're not. Thank you. The most rewarding part by far is seeing interesting things, being present when things change, seeing history. You know, it's kind of why I went into it. I mean, I ended up actually making good money, but I never, ever planned to do that. I mean, obviously I didn't plan to do it. I went into journalism, right? I mean, it's just, you know, you don't make money in journalism. I happen to find one of the only jobs where you do. I'm grateful, but that's certainly not why I did it. I did it so I could have an interesting life. That's all I wanted. I wanted an interesting life.
Yeah.
And I think I've had an interesting life. I mean it. And so I'm so grateful for that.
That's the passion I read in this book. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone wants different things. I mean, maybe that's kind of a shallow thing to want. But when I was a kid, I was like, my father had an interesting life. And I was like, I want to be like my dad. I want an interesting life.
I love that.
So, and I've had it. I've definitely had it. The downside is being famous. So it's like, there's no upside in that. Just here to tell you. I mean, I guess maybe for some people there is, but I'm not whining about it. You know, everyone wants to be famous. So it's kind of unattractive to be like, oh, actually fame is bad. But it really is bad. I'm just blunt about it. I don't see an upside. I used to think, well, you know, maybe I get a better table in a restaurant, but of course I can't even go to restaurants now. So
yeah.
It's like I get hassled.
That's very true.
So what is the upside? You know, and I could bore you. I really try and keep self-pity at bay because it's the root of all unhappiness. But you know, I certainly could tell you stories about it, but I'm not going to. But let me just say, I just don't see any upside in that. What you want is to be respected by the people you respect.
Yeah.
The people who know you well in your orbit, your family, your closest friends, your coworkers, your boss. You know, if they respect you, that really means something because they know you and they watch what you do. And if they're impressed by you, then you know that's a medal on your chest, I think. But someone you've never met, I mean, like, no offense, I'm not against people I've never met, but like, why? I don't understand. You know, to be loved by strangers, it's a pretty weird thing to want. All politicians want that, by the way.
Wow.
Because they're so emotionally damaged. You'll never find a politician, maybe one exists, I've never met one, who has a healthy relationship with his dad. You know, ever. I just don't think there are any. You know, they all have these super fraught relationships with their alcoholic or absent fathers. You'll never be the man I am. You know, got a great Santini stuff. Wow. And I think, you know, a lot of those people who grew up like with dads like that become, I don't know, serial killers or graffiti artists, but some percentage become politicians, but it's the same impulse. You know, will someone love me? It's really dark.
That's an incredible insight, though. Okay. Well, and a follow-up question from Michael in the vein of sort of fame, if you will. How did you become so brave to speak the truth, no matter the cost of public backlash?
Well, you just have to make the decision. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, you know, when I got into cable news more than 25 years ago, it was. I mean, parts of it were serious, but it was much more of a sideshow. Like you would do a lot of kind of peripheral stories and it was kind of fun, and I'm a pretty shallow person actually, so I enjoyed that. You know, I like laughing, and I don't know, I don't have any problem with doing light stuff that's not super significant, you know, and I really enjoyed that. But at a certain point, it had nothing to do with me, of course, it's just the trajectory of the country. Things got very serious, and because newspapers died and magazines died and FM radio died, and two companies controlled the entire internet, cable news became a bigger player in the media landscape. It became more significant. It became a kind of place to debate real things. And I happened to be working there at the time. And I had views about those things. And the second I expressed them, you know, they call you names. Like my favorite, I mean, I'll never forget the day someone first called me a white supremacist.
Oh my. And
I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking, I've never sued anybody and I never would. I hate lawyers above all else, like Shakespeare. But I remember thinking, can I sue for that? A white supremacist? Really? I'm like, what? I mean, first of all, it's like I have a lot of faults and I probably have a lot of crappy opinions, but that's just not one of them. It's like, why would they call me a white supremacist? That's so awful. And so I remember going on the air and being like, well, recently I was called names and a racist. And just so you know, here are my real beliefs about race.
Right.
They are my real beliefs, which is it's irrelevant to the way we treat people. We're all created by God. Therefore, we're all equal. Every single one of us. I don't mean equal in ability or appearance. I mean equal in moral value. Every person is exactly identical to every other person in value because we're all created by God. I'm not just saying it. I believe that.
Yeah.
I was raised to believe that, and I do believe it. And so we should be judging people on the basis of what they do, not how they look. So I go on TV and I say this, and I quote Martin Luther King. They immediately denounce me as a white supremacist for doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really grateful for it, because that's the moment where I realized, oh, they're not serious. They're not saying that I'm a white supremacist or whatever they're saying because they believe that I am. No one who knows me thinks that.
Sure.
They're saying it because it's a method of controlling me. If they hit me in the face hard enough, they can get me to do what they want me to do. So the second I realized that, I was like, oh, you're acting in bad faith. You're totally insincere. You're a liar. I no longer care about your opinion. Why would I?
Right.
I'd have to be a masochist to care about your opinion.
So the antidote is realizing it's a game they play to discredit,
totally.
and it's not personal. And yeah.
No, I care about what my wife thinks and my children.
Yeah, right.
I immediately change my behavior. It really bothers me if they don't approve, because they know me and I love them and they love me, I hope. So, but if some person on the internet thinks he's going to get me to shut up by calling me names, no. Yeah. I'll die first. I mean it too.
Want to take a moment and mention the book you see behind Tucker. This is a special edition book. It's actually autographed by him. It's not a rolled stamp, and I've done that before. I've bought a book thinking it was autographed by somebody I admire, and it's printed. This isn't printed. You've already signed 6,000?
Wait. You can do that?
Yeah, it's a rolled stamp. Absolutely.
Damn, I'm doing that next time because my hand hurts.
Yeah, you've signed 6,000 already, I think, and you're still signing. So, in the future, you're going to be able to buy this book from other distributors, but it's not going to be autographed. So if this is going to make a great addition to your collection or a great gift for a passionate friend, just pull up a browser window and head to premiercollectibles.com/the long slide before they are sold out, friends. I'm going to keep asking questions, but did want to mention that this actually is a unique offering. So let's go to Brad.
So do I sign as you talk?
You can, absolutely. We would love that.
We call these in my house the sexy glasses, and I think in a moment you'll see why.
Let's see. Let me just melt into the studio.
I'm not going to impose this on your viewers.
Do it, man. Put the sexy glasses on.
That's all right.
Brad from Burr Ridge, Illinois. Who do you think is the more promising run for 2024? Trump, DeSantis, or someone else?
I don't know. I am being as honest as I can. I'm not that good at politics, honestly. I've covered it for all these years, and I know most of the people involved, and I know pretty well. But my brain doesn't work that way. So I don't, what would bring this or that coalition. I'm not good at that at all. So I don't know what would be the most effective, and I don't know I haven't talked to Trump about it, but my sense is, that he's not going to run again. I don't think so. That's my gut sense. I think he's very distressed about the last election. He thinks it was stolen from him. I think he's very concerned about, what's happening in the country. I think he loves communicating to large groups of people. He's great at it, giving big rallies and stuff. But, he's 75. Is he really going to, at almost 80, want to jump back in and have another 4 years? This is purely speculative. I don't see him wanting to do that. I could be, of course, completely wrong. I often am completely wrong. I was wrong the first time. Trump called me actually in the car. It was so funny in 2000, because I'm in the media, so I've known Trump a long time. And he called me in early 2005. And he's like, I'm running for president. And I said, because I covered his first run for president, or his second run, I can't remember, but in 2000. So 15 years before, 21 years ago, I covered Trump's run, and I was like, and I laughed, and I said, "You got another book coming out?" I just thought it was a marketing thing, because that's what he's a marketer. Is what he does.
Sure.
And it was so interesting. He said, no, he was dead serious. He's very funny. He loves to joke. That's why I've always gotten along with him, because he's just like hilarious. He's genuinely funny, like no joke. He is funny. But he didn't laugh. And he said, I think I'm going to surprise you this time. And it was so strange that I actually wrote it on my calendar. And I believed him. Anyway, whatever. So I've been wrong. I've certainly been wrong. I may be wrong this time, but here's the truth. If you voted for Trump in 2016 and again in 2020, or even if you didn't, but you roughly agree with what he ran on, and I think a lot of people do, you're under attack. You can't articulate those ideas in public. You are being denounced as a white supremacist. You're in trouble, and you need someone to protect you, like for real. You need someone with political power to reestablish the boundaries of American government, where the Bill of Rights actually applies. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So without getting into specific candidacies, I think whoever can demonstrate an ability to protect ordinary American voters from creeping fascism, it's not even creeping, it's here, is going to win. We'll certainly get my vote. For sure.
A big here to that over in Nashville as well. David from Fort Worth, Texas asks, which guest on Tucker Carlson Tonight has been your favorite to interview and why?
Oh, there's no, that's not, that's just a softball. That's so easy. Mark Stein.
Really? Mark Stein?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's the most frequently occurring guest. We have him on twice a week. There's usually a 3-month period where Stein disappears, and I think he goes to a foreign country. I know him well. I've never learned where he goes.
Okay.
He's just not there. But when he's in the United States, we interview him twice a week, and it's just always the highlight of my day. And for a really simple reason, Stein is maybe the most articulate person I've ever met in my life, and one of the funniest. We've done hundreds and hundreds of Mark Stein segments. I've never one time told him what we're going to talk about. I've never given him any question in advance. You can throw any question to him, no matter how arcane and out of left field it is. How do you feel about sprinkler fountains? And he'll just take it and run with it.
Yeah.
In a way that's insightful and brilliant and hilarious.
I love that.
I could talk to Mark Stein for the rest of my life. I just think he's just really impressive. And my view of that is, if I can brag, one thing I'll brag about our show is that if we have a guest who's smarter and funnier than I am, I let him talk. I'm not insecure. The reason he's on the show is because he's smarter and funnier than I am. I don't have to be the smartest and funniest person in the world. Yeah. I'm honored to have someone who's smarter and funnier. So I throw one question to Mark Stein, and then I just shut up and let him go for 4 minutes and enjoy the hell out of it as a viewer.
Yeah.
And I think that works. I mean, so often these hosts are so insecure. It's like crazy. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
But they really are. And they'll ask a question of the guest will answer, and you can see in the host's face, like, oh no, is he more appealing than I am? And then the host will cut him off. It's like interject his own dumb idea. You're like, no, just let him talk. Just let him talk.
Yeah, and love him or hate him, one thing I've appreciated about the host, David Letterman, is I have so frequently seen him appear to be silly or ignorant, so long as his guest can sell his movie or whatever it is. His guests always appear to be fantastic, and Letterman always seems to sort of just he'll just downplay himself all the time, but he's such a host in that way. That
is a really smart point, which I'd never thought of before, but I agree with it vehemently. I mean, host is the right word. You're hosting someone as if in your home, you've invited him in. Don't mistreat him. Right. And moreover, the show has your name on it. You don't have anything to prove. You don't need to talk all the time.
You're in the light.
It's not like you need more attention. It's called the David Letterman show. Like people get it. You're in charge. You don't need to demonstrate that by interrupting people.
No one ever is like Letterman, the most brilliant man in the world. But in a way, his humility has made him quite brilliant, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
So, man, we are getting dangerously close to time. I'm so sorry to all of you, who we can't get to your questions. But I'm wondering,
I should be a talk show host.
Well, you should see about that. Maybe you've got some connected friends. I don't know. Maybe you can call, what was his name? Donald Trump. That was it.
Donald, I'm going to call Jeff Zucker, the Dwarf King, as we call him, over at CNN.
Hey, wondering if you'd entertain 22 questions in 2 minutes, personal, fun, non-political. We want to get to know you, Tucker Carlson, better.
Hope they're embarrassing. Hit me, baby.
Okay. And these are designed to go fast. So, number one, who would you like to have dinner with, past or present?
George Orwell.
Which one, Game of Thrones or Stranger Things?
Never seen either one. Have no idea what they are.
I neither have either. What is your favorite breakfast food?
Oh, honestly, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, Score Bar.
Score Bar.
Oh, I love candy in the morning, but I really try not to eat it. And I don't live near a store, so I don't. So generally coffee. Okay.
Favorite genre of music, and Grateful Dead is not a genre.
I love bluegrass.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. A lot of bluegrass in Tennessee. Who was your idol growing up?
My dad.
What is your favorite international cuisine?
Well, come on. Italian. I'm an American, man.
That's right.
Please.
I love the way that's phrased. Baby. I love the way that's phrased. I'm an American, so Italian.
Of course.
What's your favorite candy bar?
Oh, that's such a tough one. And I'm just to blow your mind, I'm going to go Zagnut.
That does blow my mind.
Yeah.
Especially when there's Hershey's out there. Do you have a favorite season?
Fall.
What is your favorite childhood memory?
Riding in the car with my dad and my brother and our dogs.
Did you ever have an imaginary friend?
Never. All my friends are real.
Love that. Do you have a favorite animal?
Oh, a spaniel. It's not even close. I have 4 of them.
You have 4 Cocker Spaniels?
Springers.
Springer?
Yeah.
Wow. What is your go-to workout? Do you work out?
I walk to the car in the morning.
Hey, I do that one.
and my truck it's not lifted, but it's pretty high, so I have to kind of pull myself in. So it's both lower and upper body.
Okay. What do you never leave home without?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Zyn.
What is this?
It's Zyn. It's a non-tobacco nicotine delivery device, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever had. It's not a carcinogen.
Is it
It's
gum?
also not bad. Zyn is not a sin, as we say.
Okay.
It's made by the Swedish Match Corporation of Stockholm, Sweden. It's like snus, but it's just delicious, and it's all the whole grain goodness of nicotine with none of the downside.
Wow. And is it a gum?
No, it's like a pouch, and it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
It's amazing. And, there's so much judgment around tobacco because it kills you. It's bad. I mean, I've had close relative died of it. So I'm not, but there's a reason people smoked, and the reason they did was because nicotine is awesome.
Yeah.
Zyn,
you better
ask your doctor. It's not bad for you. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I would never leave without the Zyn. I'd go naked and still bring this.
Wow. Well, Zyn now owes you money. So, do you have a favorite superhero?
No, I never liked the superhero. I thought they were kind of creepy in their weird little costumes. Too tight, too constrictive.
What's your favorite time of day?
My favorite time of day is I start to ramp up around 7:30 p.m.
What's your favorite board game?
Oh, backgammon. I mean, I love backgammon.
Do you have a favorite teacher? That could be spiritual. That could be a teacher from high school.
I never liked my teachers. I always thought they were pretty mediocre, to be totally honest with you.
Perfect answer.
I've learned a ton from a couple of friends of mine and from my wife, honestly.
Do you like movie popcorn with or without butter?
Without.
Fair. Who's your favorite author?
Oh, I would have to say George MacDonald Fraser, who wrote the Flashman series, the most brilliant. There are 11 of the most brilliant, hilarious, subversive novels ever written in English.
Oh, wow. I'll need to check that out.
Oh, incredible.
And who has impacted you the most?
Oh, my children. I mean, totally changed my life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Agree. 100% there. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, though, with Tucker. And to order Mr. Carlson's limited edition autograph book, go to premiercollectibles.com/the long slide. And whether you are a collector or lover of books, Premier Collectibles has the best-selling author-signed books that everyone wants. And if you want to be a part of the live signing experience with more of your favorite authors, follow Premier Collectibles on Instagram or Facebook. And Tucker, from all of your friends who've tuned in, from all of us at Premiere, thank you so much for doing this. Any closing words? Any parting thoughts?
No, but you just did such a great job. I appreciate it. I mean, you made an hour go by in like 20 minutes.
Oh, so wow. That's huge. So coming from you, thank you so much. And bye, everybody. This has been great.
Thanks, Danny. See you, man.
See ya.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.